great reward. This is a story of a great king and a poet. Honesty is something which pays at the end of the day. In this chapter, you would come to know how the poet gets a great reward from the king for his art and work. Thousands of years ago, in the kingdom of kind-hearted, noble King Aditya, there lived a young talented poet who wrote wonderful poems. His name was Veerbhadra. No one could recognize and appreciate his art and poems. Veerbhadra one day came to the court of King Aditya of Rajgarh, who was known for his love of art. Veerbhadra once went to the court of King Aditya and bowed his head in honor and respect. Great king asked, "Yes, Veerbhadra, how may I help you? What have you brought with you?" Veerbhadra again bowed his head in honor and started reciting a beautiful poem. The king smiled and heeded the whole poem with great attention, and at the end he expressed his liking and nodded his head to show that he liked the poem. Then king went away for other court tasks. Veerbhadra felt very helpless and disappointed, as he was expecting for some reward. But then he, being an optimist, convinced himself and said, "I have a dream not just to get a reward. Instead, I want to stay here with King Aditya to serve him throughout my life." The king was thinking that Veerbhadra was undoubtedly a great poet. Definitely he deserves a reward, but let me check him first and put him to the test. Veerbhadra started coming to the king's court every single day to recite his poem, and he did not receive any reward for his poems. Veerbhadra didn't get disheartened and hopeless with this, because his dream was to serve his great King Aditya throughout his life. One day, the kind Aditya sent one of his trusted courtiers to find out what actually Veerbhadra thought about him. The courtier went to Veerbhadra and said, "Don't you think you are wasting your time by coming every day in court and reading your poems and going back without any reward? I think the king likes your work, but he thinks your work isn't worth rewarding you." Veerbhadra said angrily, "Please, you may leave. I would not like to listen anything against my almighty king." The king's courtier went to the king and narrated what happened exactly. The king thought that Veerbhadra was a real treasure. He deserved something great suitably, but he decided to carry on with his test for Veerbhadra's persistency. Veerbhadra wrote a very beautiful poem. Again he went to the court and recited his poem. The king heard his poem and said, "Veerbhadra, I like your work a lot and really admire your work too. So I have decided to honor you with a reward that I have not given anybody so far." The king gave Veerbhadra a sealed letter and said, "Take this to Kanyakumari and hand over the sealed letter to the ministers." The moment the ministers read the letter, they stood up, bowed their heads to him and said, "We welcome you to our land, honorable King of Kanyakumari." Veerbhadra was very confused and blank, but knowing all the story, he came to know that Kanyakumari was under the protection of King Aditya. The almighty king secretly sent one of his messengers to the ministers of Kanyakumari with crown. Veerbhadra was rewarded greatly by great King Aditya for his honesty, gratitude and patience, and that's how Veerbhadra became the king of Kanyakumari, and thus the poet received a great reward. Hordes. Do you know, earlier there were many kings in India. One of the kings, named Vikramaditya, was famous for his justice and wisdom. Who was he? What contribution has he given to our country?
From the story, write yes or no for the following statements. The king was very kind-hearted. Yes. The poet was faithful. Yes. The king rewarded the poet with the crown of Kanyakumari. Yes. The poet's name was Ashok Chandra. No. Fill in the blanks with the correct words from the brackets. The king nodded his head to show that he liked the poem of Veerbhadra. The courtiers narrated whole story to the king. The king decided to reward Veerbhadra for his honesty. Do it yourself. Find out the difference between the given pair of words. Write their meanings. Self-activity. Answer the following questions in one sentence each. What kind of king was King Aditya? King Aditya was kind-hearted and noble king. How did the king react when he first listened to Veerbhadra? The king bowed his head in honor and respect when he listened to Veerbhadra. Why was Veerbhadra disappointed to see the reaction of the king? He was disappointed as he was expecting for some reward from the king. What did Veerbhadra decide? He decided to stay with the king and serve him throughout his life. How did the king reward Veerbhadra in the end? The king rewarded Veerbhadra with the crown of Kanyakumari. Let's know words. We say a pair of shoes. Color the words that answer the collective nouns. A group of people. A school of fish. A set of. Make smaller words from the given words. Ode, tinned, ink, mighty, appoint. Let's learn grammar. The words which modify the parts of a speech are called adverbs. The adverb which tell us about time are called adverbs of time. Example, she came yesterday. They deliver the newspapers daily. Underline the adverb of time in each sentence. Yesterday, next week.